Um, so, Kari, why don't you start by telling us a little bit about who you are?
I'm Kari Carbone. Hi, I'm new to Chicago. I recently met Randy in February at E&I meeting, and I am a personal style and image specialist. So I work with professionals to polish their wardrobes in a practical way that functions for their lives, and a lot of what I do happens in their closets. So that's why we're talking about this particular topic today. And you find something, a little nugget helpful today.
All right, yeah, you have go ahead and I'm excited for the timing on this because I just found out I'm moving, so
Oh,
it's the perfect time for me to get.
awesome.
I know you've got general tips for everybody if you just want to jump.
That's so great. Yeah. I just recently moved, I guess I should say I just recently moved from Florida to Chicago, so I'm new and I'm loving meeting new people and connecting. And I'm loving the city and finally able to branch out a little more. I even have my favorite mask is currently this one. Um, so that's my little elevator speech. Okay, so today I wanted to talk to you all about um, how to purge your closets. I don't know, Randy, if you've had an issue with this or if you're kind of tentative about it now that you're thinking about the move. But I can say I'll raise my hand from personal experience. It's usually pretty daunting because most of the time we don't really know what's hiding in there because there are spaces where we typically can close the door and it's sort of out of sight, out of mind until a life change happens. We're going for a job interview. We have a big meeting coming up. We have a business trip to plan for. So what do we do and how do we navigate that space? And a lot of times we find ourselves going somewhere and buying more things because we don't know what's already in there, or we're not sure if it fits, or we're not sure if it still works for our current season of life. And so then we fill it up. We continue to fill instead of dealing with what's in there. So I wanted to break this down into really tiny pieces because this can be a very overwhelming project for most of us. So that's why today we're just going to focus on the purge part because usually that's the hardest part and it's kind of the kale of the whole process because we've got a lot of work to do on that front end. And typically when I'm working with somebody, it takes anywhere from 3 to 6 hours, just depending on the size. And that's with help. So just imagine. And if we're here in the city, a lot of us have small closets. At least I do. That was a big shift for me going from home in suburbia, Orlando, to a condo in downtown Chicago. I did not really know what I was in for. So I'm going to share my screen. Share this here. This is just going to talking about a couple of best practices, and I really want to focus on 3 main steps and keep it really simple. And if you all do have questions, I'm happy to take those at the end, but just for time's sake, I want to kind of keep us flowing, so make a note or put it in chat, and we'll definitely get to all of your questions. So before we start, there's a couple of things to do before we even open those doors. I call it prep work for beginning the purge. The first thing you want to do is make sure that somewhere in your home you have a cleared space to fill up. That sounds kind of funny since we're purging, but it's actually really necessary. So some ideas for you in condo. If you're living in a condo, I don't know how many of you are in a condo or apartment, would be maybe your bed. So if you make your bed, that's a really big clear area to sort of separate your piles. Perhaps it's an office floor or a spare bedroom. And if space is super duper tight, you can sort of take it in chunks and then even use the trunk of your car. If you get, just sometimes I've learned in the short time I've been here that I have to get really creative. So the prep work, that's really important. So make sure you have a clear space. The other things you want to do are make sure that you've got just a couple of supplies on hand that you'll need during your purge. And those would be 3 sheets of paper, tape, and a pen. And then you're going to also have a couple of trash bags or maybe boxes on hand. And that's to keep your purge process orderly as you go because we're going to be sorting them into a few piles. Then there's going to be one more step at the end that I'm going to say now. And then I'm also going to say again at the end. And I just want you to remember when you're purging to stay committed. What I mean by stay committed is once you've decided that this watch that you got as a gift that you really don't like, and you decided that you're going to put it in the sell or the donate pile, that it stays there. So you're going to want to commit, because this is how you keep your space, your home, and then ultimately your brain clear of the clutter that is taking up very valuable real estate in your life. So step one, empty out the closet. Empty it out. See this picture right here? This is what your closet should look like. That's what I mean by empty it out. I mean literally everything. I'm not loving that they still have hangers there. That actually makes me itch a little bit. Take everything out, because in your closet you may even decide to go with new hangers to help maximize space. So perhaps even the hangers may be a thing that you switch out. Take every little thing out. Should be completely empty space. It's really ground zero for your transformations. It's very, very, very important that you don't skip that foundational piece. Next thing, you're going to have to get really real with yourself. This is hard, but you've got to be super honest. You need to think about each item's function in your life. If you can't remember it or you forgot about it, and it doesn't, I'll Marie Kondo it here for a minute, it doesn't spark joy, you know, that's already a good indication of its importance, or perhaps lack thereof, in your life and its function. Red flags would be things like I said, it was a gift, or I've spent a lot of money on it, or I'm going to get back into that pair of slacks one day, or something like that. Those are excuses that we're trying to convince ourselves to hold on to something. So if you find that you're doing that with yourself, that's already a sign of we need to think about where it needs to go. So where does it need to go? Where are some places we could put it? So I like to talk about things in my home, especially my closet, in terms of things like having a home where it lives. Where does it live? Something that is said a lot around. And so it's the same as it's the same thing when you're purging. It's going to live in 3 piles. I mentioned that a little while ago about 3 sheets of paper, and here's why. So you're going to have a pile that's either donate and sell, and so those are nice items. My watch, if I didn't like it, I actually do, would fall into this pile if it was in good working condition. It just really is a matter of personal preference. If you would prefer to take it and consign it somewhere, or sell it online, or if you don't want to be bothered with it, you can take it somewhere to be repurposed, because it probably still has a lot of function left. Tossing. I really should add recycle to this, because there are a lot of places now, even jeans, where you can actually take items to be recycled and repurposed instead of filling up landfills. The textile industry in regards to clothes is one of the biggest contributors to our problems with filling up landfills. And if we recycled, repurposed those clothing items better, instead of just discarding them into the trash, even things that are holy, our earth will be the better for it. So there are actually a lot of big box stores and retail brands now that actually have a lot of programs. Even denim, if you go to Madewell, which we have one here in Chicago, you can actually get, I think it's $10 or $20 back for a pair of jeans. Every time that you go in, you get a credit. So you get a spiff back. H&M is another store that will also get 15% no matter where your clothes are from. So you're actually doing something good, and they're going to give you a little credit for that too. And then of course the keep pile, and hopefully this will be the smallest of your piles. And in this pile right here will help you determine any holes that might be in your wardrobe. And I do recommend, if you haven't done a big purge in a while, especially up here we have wardrobes that are seasonal, I would recommend that you do fall and winter and a spring and summer purge, and that you would do that sort of at the beginning of every season. And then kind of a good best practice at the end of the season. For example, I just got back some things from the tailor. I had 2 sweaters that I had somehow nicked. So a lot of times they can fix it, and she did both flawlessly, and so that saved me from having to go out and buy 2 other pieces. And then I knew sort of like the state of my clothes before I packed them back up. So I know next season when I go to pull out those 2 sweaters that I happen to like a lot, I know they're already in good working order, and then I've already had them repaired. And then that's going to also create an excitement about your wardrobe. So that really is my purging 101 in a nutshell, just to not overwhelm you. If you guys have questions now, I'm happy to take those. And if you have them later, this is my email address down here, info@carbone.com. And yeah, I'd love to help you in any way I can. Closets are my jam.
Awesome. Yeah, if anybody has any questions, I do have one, and maybe this is not fair because I know you are newish to Chicago, so I'm not going to ask you to say any specific places, but how do you find somewhere to donate? Like, how do you? I've always wondered that. Like, sometimes I'll make a pile and then I know I'm not supposed to throw it away, but I don't know what to do or where to get it.
Yeah, that's a good question. So I recently intentionally got myself lost. I'm learning the city a little bit. I got lost in the West Loop. I knew where I was going, but I went down a one-way street the wrong way. Thankfully, there wasn't any traffic. Yeah, I already did that one, so check that off. So I found my way to a Goodwill, and they do a pretty good job. And because people are becoming a lot more conscious about the overfill of landfills, at least in the fashion industry, they're all doing better, even the Wells and Salvation Armies. They're doing better with repurposing the things that they can't use. So I have actually created a list that I use for my clients they're nationwide programs, which means it's usually a little easier to find. So, and then I typically look for the easiest thing, like drive-through. So you can actually drive through the West Loop location. I think there's one in Lincoln Park. And you can just drop your stuff off right there. And they'll ask you if you want a receipt for your donation, and you can take them or not. I'll get them if my client asks for them, but usually I just, part with the things and say thank you for your time and head off. So I am, and I usually will I'll ask whenever I'm shopping for myself or for a client, I'll ask stores where I frequent what their practices, if any, are for accepting used clothing, because a lot of them, again, they want to keep us coming back to the store, right? So it's an incentive for them if they do a good deed by taking donations, promising and committing to recycling them, and then offering us a little credit to keep us coming back. So then I also will ask a couple of my other stylist colleagues what's happening in their area or where they can go. You can even donate, ladies, you can donate your bras. There's actually an organization here, it's nationwide, but we have a chapter here in Chicago called I Support the Girls. And they make sure that women in harder socioeconomic environments have access to some decent lingerie pieces. And I recently had to switch over some sizes for myself and had a lot that were still in really good condition or hadn't used. And so I have actually probably about 10 or 12 that I'm getting ready to turn over to them, and hopefully it'll help somebody else. So that's how I find, dress for success is another good one. That's for men and women. So if you have suits, ties, belts, even shoes, they'll take those as well. They'll dry clean them first. If it hasn't already been done, they'll dry clean them and repurpose them for people who are looking for jobs.
In any condition? I mean, sometimes, you have shoes that either repaired or need to be.
So what they typically do, and I'll go on and I'll look to make sure that what I want to give them meets their criterion. So I don't want to waste their time or my time. So I'll go and make sure, like maybe they're only seasonally accepting codes or they're doing it just for this. So that's information you can usually find pretty quickly on their website. And just click under like their donation button, and they'll usually spell out pretty well what it is that they're looking for in need of. It's kind of like a food bank with you. It's a clothes bank, and they're serving a specific need in a specific area, and so they're going to have guidelines under their website for that.
Very cool.
I have a question.
Sure.
So Kari, to your point about, not worrying if something's like, I've read closet tips before, and I know the whole, if you haven't worn it in a year, which you have to be careful with that too. But the one that gets me is the too pricey. And I have one particular item I'm hoping you can give me a push in the right direction that I absolutely can't part with, because it was I graduated with my master's about 2 years ago. I bought a dress for the graduation that I also wore to my party. And it was the second most expensive dress I've ever bought in my life. And um, it was $155, which is more than I ever spend on like any piece of clothing. So I was like, well, I'm going to wear this out. Well, uh, my shape has changed. Let's just leave it at that. And it doesn't fit anymore. Um, and I just can't bring myself to donate it, especially because it was that much money and it still looks new. I had the same problem with my wedding dress, which was $200, but I turned that into my Christmas tree skirt. So like win-win, but I'm going, okay, what do I do with this? And I actually took it off the hanger last night and put it on the bench at the base of my bed just to like push myself that way. But
Okay.
yeah, it really is kind of breaking my heart.
So I wanna ask you, thank you for sharing, because I know personally how hard it is to part with some of these items. I want to ask you, how do you feel when you take it out? What emotions? Like that, like give me words. Like I feel happy, I feel disappointed, whatever those things are.
It,
Give
remind,
me
it,
three.
it reminds me of my graduation, and then I go, it doesn't fit me anymore. It's
Okay.
always the same, and I always go, you got to do something with this. And I every time I look at it, but like I've looked into selling it on like ThreadUp, and I will make maybe $2, and
Yeah.
even that you get it like 60 days later.
Yeah.
So
So give me three emotions, Mayor. That,
emotions,
give
okay.
me three emotions that it evokes in you when you look at it. Emotions.
Joy, accomplishment, and frustration.
Okay. So two out of those three tell me it's a sentimental item to you.
Yeah.
And like I'm getting goosebumps because I still have my high school graduation dress. And it's in a sentimental items box with other, like my baby blanket is not a thing, because I remember how I felt picking that out. I remember how I felt wearing it. It doesn't fit me. I was like a size 4. I'm definitely not. So, but it feels good. And every time I look at it, I
Mm.
remember. So if you had like 20 of those things, we would need to really talk about it. But I would say that that sounds like a sentimental piece for you. Probably doesn't need to live in your closet. If it reminds you, perhaps you find a photo of yourself in that dress, frame it, and then maybe you box the dress up and keep it with wherever else you keep sentimental items. What you did with your wedding dress was brilliant. You can certainly maybe take the gown, if it's a gown or if it's a dress, to a tailor, and they may be able to, even depending on the difference, in measurements from then and now, they may actually be able to build in panels into the piece. Again, I say that with the caveat of I don't know what the fabric is or anything like that, but it never hurts to ask a tailor. And in fact, that's my other sort of like advertising is, most of us, we don't take our pieces to tailors, and then so you can have a beautiful, very expensive piece that looks like junk when you put it on. Why? Because it hasn't been cut to your body. And it's so important. We live in a society in a mind of like, give it to me now, fast fashion. Well, the pieces that we see in our stores are not ready to wear. They're almost ready to wear. And we go in with an expectation of it's going to fit, and then we get down on ourselves when it doesn't. All you need to do is take it and tweak it. I bought a couple of cute summer pants recently at Target. They're fabulous. I felt like $1 million wearing this weekend. Why? Because I took it and got it cut for my short little 5'2" legs. Not 5'7". That was somebody was probably wearing when they made this. So did that answer your question, Mary?
It did, yeah, and that's really helpful. And
Okay.
I've been trying to think of how I can repurpose it, but I'm also a person who likes to get rid of stuff. Like I don't like having things, especially for sentimental reasons. But you are reminding me that this was kind of an important.
That's a momentous life occasion. Like I
Yeah.
mean, I personally, that's right up there with bringing a baby home from the hospital to me.
Yeah.
So I think that deserves a space if it brings you that much joy.
Yeah.
I mean, you said joy and accomplishment. I mean, every time I say that, I get goosebumps. So go to a tailor if you want to try to wear it again. To make sure you have a picture somewhere displayed so you can remember, and then you don't feel bad about packing it up and putting it somewhere.
Yeah, thanks. That was great.
You're welcome.
Yeah, I love that idea of the photo because if it is a sentimental thing, then that's the way we capture those sentimental moments. So
That's right.
I love that idea.
Yeah, just remember, think about how it serves you and what its place is in your life.
Yeah, Kari, you mentioned one specific retail store that does a buyback program or take. Which was that?
So the one for jeans, which I particularly love because of how much water one pair of jeans takes. I won't even tell you, it's obscene. Madewell. So that's one word, Madewell. It's the same parent company as J. Crew, who hopefully is not going under. But Madewell, and we have one here, I think it's off of Oak Street. Nordstrom, I believe, also carries their jeans and some of their t-shirts, but they have a program where you can go and take jeans pretty much in any condition and then they recycle those.
Okay.
Actually, I think they make them into, I don't know if it's, I believe they turn them into insulation. I almost feel like it's insulation for houses.
That's fascinating. Yeah, I've seen that Uniqlo also will take stuff back and may even give like a coupon as well.
Yep.
Does anybody else have any questions before we wrap up? Kari, tell
Yeah,
us.
I have.
Yeah, go ahead.
Sorry, just a sort of a quick thought because I appreciate we're running out of time. Kari, I should mention I'm a docent for the city of Chicago, so I do orientations. If you want to message me, we'll connect afterwards. I can show you around and get you situated.
I would love that. Thank you, James. I'll be doing that. Thank you.
But the other thing I have to ask, and I know you've only got like 2 minutes to give an answer to this, is your thoughts about the push-pull between authenticity and assimilation when you're dressing for a workplace, looking through your closet as to things that make you comfortable and feel happy, but then how that fits with the particular culture that you're trying to fit in with. Do you have any thoughts about which of those needs to win out?
I think that, I think like for me, I'm my product. So I dress for my client in mind, but I'm practical. I've got to be able to feel like myself and move in them. My clothes have got to portray my personality and also my brand, if you will. So if you're working for a corporation, you're obviously going to be within guidelines for dress code, depending on your work environment in your role. And so I would say make sure that you are true to yourself and your lifestyle in tandem, making sure that whatever sort of you choose also fits and is versatile enough to make sure that that meets the criteria of your company if you are working for a company. And that's what I do, polish practical wardrobes. I make sure that it fits your corporate or your if you're an entrepreneur, your business need. And I also make sure it fits your lifestyle. And my goal with my clients is to make sure that their wardrobe, again, is versatile so that it can easily, just by switching a blazer or switching a shoe or switching an accessory, perhaps a tie or something, I can give you a whole new refresh. And it's pretty much the same thing, but it just makes it's subtle nuances like that. It just makes it the perfect little switch for an environment. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, it's really good that you can do the legwork for us because a particular challenge for us in Chicago is as we get into the winter as well. And Chicago is a very transit-oriented city and you're trying to dress for the outside while also trying to dress for that 9 a.m. conference call. It's a challenge.
Yes, it is a challenge.
Thank you, Kari.
My pleasure.
Thank you everybody for being here, but thank you, Kari, for those tips and for packing a lot of stuff into just a few minutes. It already has gotten me thinking about wanting to go in there and just start ripping things out of my closet now.
Same. Yeah, thank you.
You're so welcome. It's nice talking with all of you. Thank you, Randy.
Have a good afternoon and hope to see everybody at another coffee break.